Thing is, after game one, he said, I felt a little rusty going into the game. After game two, he talked about feeling tired going into the game. Well, if you take that into account in this game, there you go. Anthony Edwards, though, finished with his 15th career 30-point playoff game. If you want to put that in perspective, and we do, all other Timberwolves players have combined for 15 of those games. All of them. The next closest player is Kevin Garnett with 7.
All right, Tim Legler here now on SportsCenter. Look, if there was any question how the Wolves would respond at home after 2 dismal performances in OKC, we got that answer real quick in a hurry, especially Anthony Edwards, 16 points in that first quarter. What changed for them?
I just thought there was the appropriate level of energy you have to have against Oklahoma City. I didn't see that in games 1 and 2. That meant there was no swagger there. The swagger was there from the beginning. Their best player came out and got them started, as you mentioned, with Anthony Edwards. I thought that set the tone for their entire team. You tend to relax when you know your best players in a good place, and his aggressiveness, getting out in the open floor, his first 2 dunks of the series he got in that first quarter, and his step back 3 was working. That dual threat, Anthony Edwards gave us that. Another thing, though, I think that mattered, Michael, in their zone defense that they played in game 2. I thought it put a passive mentality into their heads. This is a team full of athletes. Right. They've got size, they've got lateral speed. You might not be able to beat Oklahoma City in a series, but I think the best bet is to turn them loose against those guys. Man up, take the challenge, use your activity and your athleticism. They did that tonight. The activity level was off the charts, and I thought it really kind of throttled Oklahoma City. They just did not get any rhythm whatsoever in this game.
So let's go to the other side. You mentioned how when your best guy is playing well, you feel more confident. Yes. The Thunder didn't have that. Their best player, the league MVP, 4 for 13 in this game was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Obviously, that has to change in Game 4, but what led to that here in Game 3?
Well, there's no doubt that they had him targeted as a priority. We're not going to let you come down and get these high ball screens, these brush screens, and just eat us up right down the center of the floor, getting to your sweet spots, which means either a pull-up jumper or getting to the foul line. 4 free throw attempts in this game. He had 28 in the first 2 games. So they played him without fouling. But more importantly, they just committed extra bodies to his driving paths, forced kickouts. Oklahoma City is not a high-volume three-point shooting team. I think Minnesota made a determination. We're not watching that anymore because the 38 he got in Game 2 was easy. Everything about it was literally looked like a practice performance. I think they saw the film. They took it personally. They were going to load up on Shai on the edges of the lane, force the kickouts, get closeouts with a hand up, and they were going to count on the fact that Oklahoma City was not going to make enough threes to beat them. Right. Now, the game got so out of hand in the second quarter.
Didn't matter,
we'll never really know, but the tone was set. How they wanted to approach this game was very effective, and as we are saying, they're back in the series.
So now the question is for Oklahoma City, how would they respond in Game 4, again, trying to get it back to OKC? Tim's coming back a little bit more because there's another series we need to talk about here on Saturday. With us, we got to talk about the Eastern Conference Finals going into Game 3. Now, look, those trash-talking Knicks fans were mad silent for a second straight game Friday night. Now they got to climb out of an 0-2 hole starting on the road. What exactly have the Pacers done, though, Tim, to build this lead?
I think the biggest thing they've done is play with incredible poise under duress in the fourth quarter of these games. They are operating their offense the way they need to. They've had guys step into big shots when they've had to have them. It looks to me like the Knicks are the ones that are getting a little bit frazzled and panicked in those spots, despite the fact that they've got the clutch player of the year, Jalen Brunson. Right. But Indiana has handled those moments better, obviously, with the comeback they had in Game 1 and the way they shot the ball in Game 2. There were only 24 threes made in the entire game. 5 of those were made in the last 9 minutes by the Pacers. And they were all off of penetration, kick out, and guys taking their time and shooting very relaxed three-point shots. So I think that's been the biggest difference. Yeah. These are 2 games with a lot of drama in the fourth quarter. Indiana has handled those moments better.
One thing that Indiana has done throughout these playoffs, it's forced its pace on their opponents. That includes the Knicks here in the first 2 games. Tom Thibodeau, obviously notorious for liking to play a short rotation. What's the likelihood, though, that that's going to have to change if the Knicks are going to dig themselves out of this hole?
So here's what I think. After watching Indiana all year really dismantle teams with that tempo, I don't think that's been a massive problem for the Knicks. I think they've done a pretty good job of keeping the pace of the game under control. So I don't think he's going to extend his rotation. I think what he needs to do, though, is push the buttons appropriately at the right time with the guys he is playing. And Mitchell Robinson gave them a big boost in Game 2, and there's no doubt about that. But I also think going away from Karl Anthony Towns, who's an all-league player this year, for that long a stretch in the fourth quarter, you ended up in a situation where Mitchell Robinson was on the floor guarding perimeter players late in that game, and 2 different times, including this one right here, which was one of the biggest shots of the game. He used his natural instincts from the perimeter to run to the rim to protect, because that's what he does. And Indiana used that against him. Siakam hit a 3 under those conditions, and you saw the one by Miles Turner. So I don't know that Tibbs is going to all of a sudden look down at guys 9, 10, 11, and 12 and give them some burn.
That ain't it.
But those top 8, I do think he's got to be more careful, more deliberate. Who's playing with what rotation when? And don't forget about one of your best players for that long a stretch in the fourth quarter.
Because he's not just one of their best players, he's one of their best scorers. You take him out of that situation that limits what the Knicks can do offensively. All right, much more from Tim Legler throughout these playoffs here on SportsCenter.
What we're capable of, to be honest. It just takes a mental focus for us, and that they're a great team, and we got to play like how we played tonight for a full 48 minutes. We've done it through stretches, done it in stretches throughout the first 2 games, but we had to put a full 48 minutes together, and that's what we did.
You seemed like you were in an offensive rhythm in ways that you weren't in the first 2 games. What felt different for you?
I feel like everything was the same besides the first game. I feel like the second game I was in the rhythm. My tray ball wasn't falling. Just getting back in the gym, watching shots go in, and just keep trusting it, man. That's all.
Edwards had 30 points this one, and he has now totaled 1,095 career playoff points. It puts him ahead of Jason Tatum for the 5th most playoff points by a player before their 24th birthday. Eves, I know you and I haven't worked together, but no, Michael Malone and I have these standing appointments post-game. So here we are for our conversation. There's only one way to describe this game, and that was just Wolves. They jumped out on the Thunder, out of the gates, never slowed down, which was a complete reversal from what we've seen in the first 2 games. What stood out to you, though?
I could give you all the stats in the world, but to me, what really stood out was just how aggressive and how physical and how urgent the Minnesota Timberwolves tonight. You didn't see that in game 1 and 2 in OKC. I felt Rudy Gobert had a really big influence on tonight's game. His aggression defensively, had 2 steals in the first half, being aggressive in the pick and roll, not letting Shea get comfortable, and they got out and ran. That was a really big change of events. Minnesota took care of the ball tonight. They did not do that on the road, and that fueled their break. And you got to give a lot of love to Julius Randle. After the first quarter in game 1, struggled as of late, but I thought Julius Randle was a difference maker tonight, was really aggressive, scored the ball, and once again, he was aggressive attacking the basket, not settling and putting pressure. The most aggressive teams, when you have 2 really equally talented teams, the most aggressive team usually wins, and I thought Minnesota was by far the more aggressive and the more physical team tonight. And you see the clips of Julius Randle getting into a rhythm, shooting into a big basket, and they're going to need even more come game 4 if they're going to have a chance to tie this up.
Okay, so the Thunder, we talk about how dominant they've been all season. They're used to doing what was done to them tonight. They're used to doing that to other teams, not so much being on the receiving end. So when you look ahead to game 4, what adjustments do they have to make to not have this happen again?
Well, obviously it starts with the MVP. Shea came off of a 38-point game in game 2, held to 14 tonight, only 4 free throw attempts, and had 6 turnovers. So he's got to set the stage. You can see